What's going on, guys? This is Ryan with the RK Outpost, and for weeks now, we have been talking about Marvel's Eternals and what will happen in the box office. What will happen when the MCU puts a movie out where literally the sole purpose is diversity and representation and inclusion. A movie that is not for audiences, that no one was asking for, that was clearly meant to pander to the woke critics. Well, then, even the woke critics rejected it because they said, listen, there's a ton of diversity, a ton of representation, we love that. But there's basically nothing else. And you started to see the cracks forming. You started to wonder, what will this movie do? The box office projections moved from over $100 million down to 85, down to 80, down to 75. Well, now we have some of those preliminary numbers, and it's even worse than they expected. Despite global box office glory and $71 million domestic debut, why Eternals is a wake-up call for the MCU. And in fact, yes, $71 million in the box office. You can see right here, after the $9.5 million Thursday previews, $30 million on Friday. We're down to $24.1 million on Saturday, and estimated at this point, still estimated for Sunday numbers, but estimated at $16.2 million. That is not good news for Eternals. Keep in mind, this is a movie that cost $200 million to make, far more than Shang-Chi, projected between $150 to potentially $200 million. And Shang-Chi barely broke even by the skin of its teeth. It may have made 10 or 20 bucks. That's what we're talking about for Shang-Chi. Eternals is a different beast. Eternals needs to make about $500 million worldwide. And although they've had an okay worldwide launch, these are not the numbers that they need to make money. A lot is yet to come. We got to see what the second weekend has in store. But right now, Marvel's Eternals is not looking good. Let's look at how it compares to some of these other things here. Let's scroll down. Disney was able to keep Eternals intact through the weekend, hitting $71 million opening amid mediocre audience exits and the worst reviews of all time for a Marvel title or for an MCU title. But know that when this film first landed on tracking 4 weeks ago, many had it in the $80 to $85 million 3-day range. And before that, it was over $100 million. Even with COVID factored in, it was supposed to open at over $100 million. This is not that. All in worldwide, Eternals counts $161 million. That is the positive that they can take away from this when you look at the worldwides. Now, this will not have a China release, which is going to impact what this can do worldwide. But if you look at this number, that's somewhat in line with Black Widow's $150 million for in-like markets, which of course Black Widow was also available on Disney+. This movie needs to make much, much more than Black Widow did in theaters to be profitable. That's where Marvel may have a little bit of a problem on their hands. Realize that even though an event movie may put up some business, that internally studios digest all the poor critical and fan reactions, especially coming off of a superhero, possibly franchise property. There's certain to be some Monday morning quarterbacks here at Disney with Eternals, but as one film finance source told me yesterday, it's not the end of the world here for the MCU. Of course it's not. It's going to take much more than barely breaking even on Shang-Chi, than a bad result for Black Widow, and for Eternals to potentially not even make that $500 million mark to cripple the MCU. Disney is a monster, and I've said this many times, I have no doubts that Spider-Man is probably going to break $1 billion, that Spider-Man, No Way Home. Spider-Man No Way Home is probably going to break $1 billion with all those different characters and cameos that they're going to have. There's still going to be a lot of interest in that. But what this does show us is that the time of them being able to just put out anything they want, the fact that they shoved this so full of identity politics, that time may be gone. People may be finally rejecting that nonsense, and it takes a lot because the MCU is a huge fucking brand. Disney's a huge company with a lot of marketing power. But you look at the reaction to this, you could have seen this coming a mile away. We talked the other day about how the audience score was so funny for Rotten Tomatoes. How it's so strange, isn't it, that it stuck at exactly 86% for over 24 hours. 50 reviews, 100 reviews, 250, 1,000 reviews, all of them, it stuck at exactly 86%. Until after 24 hours of us complaining about it, we finally got to see a little bit of change. Shockingly, the all-audience score still hasn't changed much, despite 10,000 reviews. But when you look at all the other review sites, this certainly isn't an indicator of what we're getting elsewhere. Look at IMDb, a 6.9, with clearly a ton of positive 10 review bombs for Marvel's Eternals. When you look at Metacritic, a 6.6 overall. That's more in line with what I expected out of this film, what the fan reaction I expected would be. Not obviously whatever Rotten Tomatoes is doing. We have seen Rotten Tomatoes manipulate so much over the years, starting probably with Captain Marvel and moving on from there. The movie that literally broke Rotten Tomatoes and made them illegitimate to ever actually consider their audience scores ever again. But you can't really argue with what we are seeing here from Eternals. Now, this is an opening that's lower than Black Widow. This is an opening that's lower than Shang-Chi. And again, if this movie even does hold decent and does Shang-Chi numbers, it would lose probably $75 million. Like I said, Shang-Chi, $150, $160 million to make that movie, barely broke even at about $420 million worldwide. Marvel's Eternals needs to do much, much more than that. And you see a lot of people freaking out. You see the woke mainstream media blaming critics, saying you're not woke enough. It's because it was directed by a female that you gave this a bad grade. The reaction to this movie has been an absolute dumpster fire from so many people involved, from Marvel stans on Twitter, to the critics, to the mainstream media, all doing anything they can to spin it. Well, it's tough to spend $71 million domestically, when originally it was over 100. Then it dropped down to 85. Then it dropped down to the high 70s. Now, you're looking at being lucky to break $71 million. We'll see what actually happens today if those projections drop off at all, because if it does, if this squeaks in at less than 70, that would be a blow that they probably didn't see coming. But what do you guys think of Eternals? What do you think of this conversation? Let me know in the comments below. Smash a like button, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications, share this video out there, and I'll talk to you later. Thanks for watching, everyone. And a huge shout out to my patrons. I appreciate you guys so much. Want to follow me on Twitter or Instagram? Check out the description below. You'll find links to my P.O. box and my Patreon as well. And I'll talk to you guys later.